أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم، إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم، تنزيل العزيز الرحيم. لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون، لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون، وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب، فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم، وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون، إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون، وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين، اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين، إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Before I invite Shaykh to deliver his talk, just a few housekeeping rules. The fire exits are located at the back here on my right-hand side and the entrance door you came through. The bathroom is at the end of the corridor on the right-hand side, just after the staircase. And if I can request you all to please move as far forward as possible, as we're expecting a lot more people to come later, so not to disturb Sheikh during his lecture. And if I can please call Sheikh with the salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We gather to remember our beloved deceased who have gone before us, and this day coincides with the occasion of the martyrdom of our illustrious Lady of Light, Bibi Fatima, Salamullah alayha. And so we will talk about the spirituality of the illustrious lady and about the process of life and our deaths. It seems very clear from the prophetic narrations that certain souls have come with a specific time period into this earth. And when that time comes, they will leave. They will not stay a moment longer, and they will not go a moment sooner. And then there are other souls whose times are unfixed. Of course, in the ultimate knowledge of God, everything is in the now and known. But I'm talking about there are certain souls that we see from the ahadith literature whose times are not fixed. They can be hastened and they can be delayed. There is certain leverage there. Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi at one point was passing through a graveyard, and he gave a statement that was quite remarkable, and he said, so many are sleeping here who have hastened to their graves prior to their appointed time. Their lives have been cut short. And on the other hand, when we look at the prophetic narrations, such as kinship increases life, being good to others and giving of the wealth of God increases life. And in a way, it tallies with the tradition of the Prophet, in which the Prophet said that the Holy Spirit inspired within my soul that your sustenance is apportioned, and when you have consumed the last morsel, you will live no longer. And that makes sense, that if a person gives away, then that procures further sustenance and therefore could be an increase in life. What the Prophet said in one hadith, that do not seek your sustenance so quickly, based on this hadith. If you were to receive whatever has been destined for you, then there will be no cause for you to remain on this earth. So be slow in procuring your sustenance. Now, these are profound words, very wise, very deep. We need to reflect upon them very carefully. The process of life and death, although, is a baffling one. Quran calls it creation of death and creation of life. Not that these are our identities. We are beyond life and death. We are from a realm that doesn't understand life and death of this nature. So here when we come, our task is a singular task, it seems. I mean, when we look at it rationally, and when we look at it intuitively, when we go deep within ourselves, there cannot be any task at hand save to complete ourselves. Everything on this earth is on a unidirectional journey of completing itself. As soon as you bury a seed within the earth, it sprouts into a young plant, and then, of course, it continues its journey. As soon as a child takes birth, it begins to grow and complete whatever of the potential that is within there physically. So the journey is a singular journey here. It's just one thing about us completing ourselves, and that's the secret: completion of the self. You see, whatever we are doing, nothing makes any difference to us as individuals aside from us and what we become. If we serve mankind, humankind, then we are actually completing ourselves through that, because we are displaying care, altruism, sacrifice for the other. When we complete our intellectual potential and when we learn things, we are just completing ourselves. The wages that we get for the work that we are qualified to do is just a reflection of the real thing. The real thing is within us, that we are becoming more complete. So when looked at in this way, life has a singular task, and that's about it, for us to complete ourselves. Now it is here that we are reminded of the prophetic narration, and of course paraphrased and repeated by the 60 Imam Salamullah alayhima, in which the Prophet said actually the biggest regret on the day of Qiyamah will be the loss of the opportunity of life. You see, at that point there, what we will see is where we are, how much we have completed ourselves. And that is why you find this this verse in the Quran, in which the Quran says you will see the believers, their lights will stream ahead of them. In 2 surahs, it's been discussed, this theme. And in the chronologically ordered Quran, the 2nd surah says, and they will plead from their God and they will say, O our Lord, complete our light for us. Complete our light for us. And this is what is happening here. We are in the process of completing our light in a multi-dimensional sense. Intellectually, we are growing. Morally, we're becoming refined. But there is the finest point, and that is the point that will be under question on the day of Qiyamah, which we will see. And that is the spiritual light. This is where Lady of Light comes in, the illustrious lady. And I want to slightly talk about this and build into this subject. The Prophet said, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ تُفْلِحُوا. Say La ilaha illallah and you will be successful. And indeed, the early community of the followers, they said La ilaha illallah. And those people were people of the sand and of the desert. They did not know more than fighting and their daily bread, and that's the majority. And those in power, they exploited, and they brought about legitimacy of exploitation of others through their theologies and Lat and Uzza, upon whom they had imposed their theologies to justify themselves. And you know all of these things. These people said La ilaha illallah. From warring people, not valuing knowledge, and a lot of them did not value care for the other. A lot of them had maybe extinguished the light of God within there, that they found little problem in burying their daughters and did not object at others burying their daughters. Now, these people of the sand and the desert who are warring, illiterate, create a civilization in no time whatsoever. Now, this is a testament to what the Prophet said, "Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu." Say la ilaha illallah and you will be successful. Now, these people became masters of their destinies. They shape the trajectory of this earth. They are influential in what humanity becomes later on. Today, whatever we have is not disconnected to the contribution of the Muslim civilization, just as the Muslim civilization was not disjointed or disconnected from the Romans. And before that, it's all one trend, human trend. So they said La ilaha illallah and they completed themselves. However, when we look at it closely and very carefully, it was one-dimensional completion. It wasn't a wholesome completion that the Muslim community went through. Although overall, when you go to Mecca right now, or Medina, and you pray with the Muslim community, you can see the wholesomeness, the spiritual wholesomeness, where you find different colors, people of different statuses, people of different sects, congregating together and praying in unison and together to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can see, yes, there is spiritual completion there as well. Alhamdulillah, despite all the tribulations that the Muslims have encountered, they still have retained that beautiful wholesomeness. But still, there is a deficit. We completed ourselves intellectually. We said, La ilaha illallah, we completed ourselves intellectually. We are aligned with God in terms of our prayers and our fast. We are God-centered in terms of our practice and our thinking. However, there is a very deep story going on here, one to which we need to awaken. You see, it's fine and good that people get their pass marks and they pass and they go to paradise. But if that was all there is to it, then the people who are already worthy of paradise on the day of Qiyamah, whose light is streaming ahead of them, would not plead to God and say, Atmim lana nurana. Complete for us our light. There is something else going on here that we need to be mindful of. That there are two sets of stories. One is of the bodies and the completion of the rational potential. One is of the bodies and aligning it with God's centricity. To have these beautiful practices involving God in our lives. But the other one is much deeper and much more essential. And if you sleep at night before falling asleep, ask this question. Is this story that I am accustomed to the end of it? Can that be everything that there is to it? That I worship Allah, align myself in practice with Allah's centricity, giving in charity. Is that all there is to it? Is there more to it? You will find from the depths of your souls, the answer will be no, there has to be something more. This is unsatisfactory. There is something so profoundly more that something in there is trying to awaken me to it. Now you find these verses in the Quran. La yanzur ilayhim. God will not look at them. Wala yatakallam. Wala yukallimuhum. And He will not talk with them on the day of Qiyamah. Wala yuzakkihim. And He will not purify them. So this is the point. That inner purity. That is the story beyond the story. That requires deep connection with God. It requires an intimate bonding with God, and that God is not the one we are worshipping. It's the same God. It's the same God, but not the same God. It is like the child, obedient to the parent, and parent is pleased with the child. But the child has not understood the depth of the love that the parent has for the child. And the child has not been able to access that depth of love. You see, if the child were to know how much this parent loves me and were to surrender to the parent, The parent will say, everything I have means nothing to me. You are everything I have. The heaven, the earth, the paradise, nothing means anything to me. It is only you. You are my everything. You are my beginning. You are my end. You are the one for whose sake I breathe and I live. Can you imagine the Holy One, the Lord of all lords, the parent of all parents, the love undying, the light untarnished? Can you imagine the intensity of his love for his creature? As Imam Ali says, if you were to understand how desirous Allah is for you, you would not wish to live for more than a blinking of an eye. You would want to go back to him. Now I ask myself, O soul, it is because you have not understood God that you are perturbed by the thought of death. O soul, it is because you have not felt the love of your Lord that you fear the darkness of the grave. O soul, it is because you have not met the friend that you do not know what awaits you at your resurrection. If only you had tasted the love of the most beloved, you would say to him, as on this day, I am a pauper with my hands empty. I rely upon you for every breath that I breathe. Tomorrow, on the day of my intense need, who do I have but you? Beyond you, O Lord, the one who will pass the decisive judgment, is you, O Lord, who is so blindly in love with me. And if only my soul could open up to the level to which the Blessed Prophet yielded to God, and the level to which the Imams from his progeny, Ali Salamullah alayhi and Zainul Abidin, yielded to him, then I would say, oh Allah, then cast me therein, because I deserve it. But be with me. Let this soul bear witness in its burning that it has not loved other than you. That is the deeper story. And that is the real story. That is the story of genuine completion, where fear remains no more within the soul, where the unknown does not perturb the soul, where gain and loss is one and the same for the soul, and when paradise and hell becomes equal. Hell is only frightening if it means that it is alienation from God. Otherwise, if it is the presence of God, then the lovers of the most beloved, if they find him within the flames, then the flames are sweeter than paradise. How profound was Abraham, Gabriel. It is his discretion. If he burns me to ashes, then he burns me to ashes. If he saves me, then he saves me. It is he. I have yielded to him. So there is this very, very profound story going on. And we need to awaken to this story, that beyond every God that we have worshipped and beyond the finest God that we worship, there is a God beyond worship. That's the God that needs to be invited in there, very deeply in there. And as we invite that God very deeply within, then resentments, malice, regrets, everything quickly begins to fade away. And in place of everything, He takes place. And then there is no time but He. The greatest regret for the saints of God at the point of death is that, oh Lord, I did not worship you enough. Not the worship that this man worships, but the worship of a companion who fades away in the beloved. Oh Lord, I did not spend my time wisely. That is the real story. And that is the real marker. Now, the odd thing is that if we don't utilize this time very carefully, then this opportunity comes to an end. This opportunity is not even there for the people in paradise. If you look at the descriptions of the people on the day of Qiyamah, is not dissimilar to the descriptions of the human community at present. You find an array of people responding on the day of Qiyamah, the same sort of responses that we give. In the face of that cosmic collapse known as Qiyamah, in which children will be turned into old people, and carrying mothers will miscarry without any sense of miscarrying, where man will appear drunkard, but they shall not be drunk. Nay, it will be the severity of the chastisement of the day. Being raised under such circumstances, God will ask, did you do all of this? No, I didn't, O Lord. But your books bear witness. But it's been written by your people. But your scribe have written it. But they are your scribe. Why don't I put a seal upon your face? Let your hands and feet talk to me instead. Let your skin bear witness. Why do you bear witness against me? But you are my skin. Has given me speech, the one who gives everything speech, and I am helpless but to testify against you. Now there is that person on the day of Qiyamah. And then there is Isa. Isa, did you tell them, worship me and my mother beside God? O Lord, why should I say a thing for which I have no right? You know what is within my soul. I do not know what is within your soul. Had I said such a thing, you would have known it. Look at Isa's sincerity and transparency. Lord, why embarrass me by asking me such a question? Then that there is Isa. And on the one hand, you have a person, oh Lord, throw my mother therein and my father, my wife and my children and mankind as a whole, and save me from this pitiful end. And then there is another one that the Prophet talks about, that there will be such noble souls who will say, oh my Lord, I give away my good deeds to him. Save him from the fire. One is at that rank of nobility, and the other one is that abased level, to throw my mother into the fire and save me. And then there's another one who says, oh Allah, save them all from whatever little deeds I have. So the same mix we see today in this world, we see the same mix in Qiyamah. People are none the wiser, they're not any more enlightened. And it seems the people of paradise do not have the opportunity that we have right now. We have found our God, La ilaha illallah, and we do sajda to him. We give charity in his name. But have we found the Lord here? And have we become so empowered through him that I am ready to die at this point, and I will thank you. I'm ready to be cut into pieces, O Lord. I'm ready to go into my grave because I have no one but you. As Ali says, Man li ghayruk, who do I have other than you? In this world, I have rejected all. I come to you with empty hands, out of design and deliberately. Take me to your care. We need to worship that God. We need to find him within the depths of the night. We need to find him within the depths of our hearts. We need to find him in each other. We need to find him at every breath and in every moment and be mindful of him. No, I do not say that we become like the Blessed Prophet or Hussein beneath the blade or Ali when the blade descends upon him. I say within our limited capacity, find him, find him. And that is the ultimate. And that is a ticket to escape paradise as a whole. Paradise appears to be another form of imprisonment, but which is a nice imprisonment. Obviously, I hope we all get there. But go beyond that, escaping the illusion of paradise and finding the truth at the core. And that is the real story. Now, with that lengthy prelude, when we look at Janab Fatima Salamullah alayha, from the narrations that we see, maximum and minimum age limits that she might have lived for. If she was born 5 years after the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then in that case, she was 18 when she dies. If she was born 5 years prior to Islam, then she was 28, either 18 or 28. Now, when you look at her life, then you think it's a very small life. For somebody to have been bestowed with such honor by the Prophet in the Quran requires in-depth analysis of her being. So think about this. And the ahadith that I will quote, in addition to the verses, are from the Sunni sources and largely from Bibi Aisha and Muslim and Tirmidhi. That when he went out on Mubahila, he took with him Ali Salamullah alayhi, Bibi Fatima, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. Then Bibi Aisha says, the Prophet said, "Oh Allah, these are my Ahlul Bayt." And in the narration of the cloak, Bibi Aisha says, "These are my Ahlul Bayt." Bibi Aisha, the Prophet said, "These are my Ahlul Bayt." Now, at the level of Mubahila, what was under question? Was it an intellectual confrontation? Because the Quran says to the Christians that had come as a delegation, "Inna mathal Isa indallah ka mathal Adam." The example of Jesus with Allah is like the example of Adam. He creates Adam from dust, tells him to be, and he is. Now, look at the logical argument that the Quran is posing. That if you say that because Isa salamullah alayhi did not have a father and therefore he becomes eligible as the son of God, then Adam does not have a father or mother. Then by your logic, Adam should be the elder son of God. And if you deny Adam being the son of God, who by priority should be the son of God, then likewise you need to deny Isa is the son of God. Now that's the rational argument. So then, وَمَنْ حَاجَكَ مِنْ بَعْدِ. And now, if anybody confronts you with argumentation or prophet after the rational argument has been posed, then come, we will engage in mutual imprecation. The mutual imprecation, mubahila, is nothing to do with rational confrontation. It is to do with the clarity of faith. It is nothing to do with the mind. It is to do with the heart and the intimate understanding of the oneness of God. Not oneness rationally, but oneness as the one who is the only one and who prevails and is the utmost reality and totally submerged in there. So when you see the ayat of Mubahila in this context, then you have to admit that the five who are going alongside the Prophet are the most spiritually refined people at that point in history alongside the Prophet. Now for the Prophet, the ideal scenario would have been the Prophet would have said, "I will come into the battlefield and you come, one of you or all of you, and on the basis of the strength of our faith, we will imprecate the liars." Because the Prophet's faith is the finest. There is no faith more refined than that. When the Prophet was enough, but he should have been enough, for the Quran to say, "No, we will take our women and children and our souls," the Quran is deliberately making a point. The Quran is actually making a deliberate point that no, there are others here with the Prophet who are endowed with the same intensity of the truthfulness of this message. And it's amazing. So if any one of those people had any doubt, not in their minds about the oneness of God, but in their relationship, the untarnished state of their relationship with God, then they would not have qualified and it would have backfired. So from here we are seeing that there was a lot of spiritual refinement in Bibi Fatima. And you can see this as well, and I don't want to make a point here, but you've got 4 men and only 1 woman. Can you imagine that? And God makes a point of taking that female with them. Then you look at the verse of Allah wishes to remove all uncleanliness from you. If you look at the hadith within Sahih Muslim, Tirmidhi, Tabari also quotes it, Ibn Kathir also quotes it, they say no, the Ahlul Bayt were these 4 people by priority, then others at the second tier. that God wishes to remove all impurity from you. Now, in the exegy of this verse, what are these impurities? It was told that these impurities are shirk and nifaq and kufr, disbelief, denial, association, hypocrisy, hatred, all this tarnished state within the soul that we, despite being finest Muslims, and we are, we carry them within our human condition. And these people are being told that these sort of defects will be removed from you. So spiritual refinement again. So when we ask this question, what qualifies her for this supreme level to which she is? And this is a hadith again in Muslim, and Bibi Aisha narrates it, that the Prophet said that Fatima is the queen of the women. And another one, she is the queen of the women of paradise. But within the Shia source, we find this hadith that the Prophet went to the house of Bibi Fatima. And she said, "Oh father, I'm extremely unwell." So he went in there and he smiled. And he said, "Fatima, are you not pleased that God gives you the rank of the queen of women?" And she said, "But what about our Lady Maryam?" He said, "Lady Maryam was the queen of the women of her world, and you are the queen of the women of your world." So we ask, here is a linkage with Bibi Maryam. Now, if you look at the life of Bibi Maryam, salamullah alayha, she was of a very tender age when she was bestowed with the light of Isa. Now, what made her eligible? Did she go and serve humanity? Did she feed the poor? Did she initiate charitable projects? Did she contribute by way of writing? Did she preach? We find in the Quran that she was confined to the house of God for devotion of God. So she didn't do any of those things. And within that confined space, she was further confined away from the others, to the extent that when Zachariah, who was her uncle, went to her, he found sustenance there. "Where do you get this from, O Mary?" "It is from my Lord. He sustains me." Imagine. She does not become an eligible soul after the bestowal of Isa. She is an eligible soul prior to the coming of Isa. If anything, because she was so pure, Isa found a place to reside in, his light. She did not acquire her nobility through Isa. She already acquired it. Now we ask, how did Lady Mary acquire such a supreme rank that the angels go to her? "Allah has cleansed you, Mary, and chosen you over the women of the world. And He will bestow you with His word and His light and His spirit." What was about Mary that she was honored in this way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The answer is obvious. It was that beautiful God alignment from her soul and total effacement in Allah. If we look at it that way, then the most important thing to Allah is that inner alignment and inner effacement with the God beyond God. I'm not saying there are two gods. It's the parent beyond the parent. We tell the child, look at the parent beyond the parent. You will find somebody else in that parent who is far greater than you can ever imagine. She connected with God beyond God. And that was the reason for her lofty status. And this is exactly what we find in Lady Zahra. It was that deep, deep alignment with God. Now, when the Prophet would come to her, she would stand from her place. She would kiss her father and then sit next to him. When she would go to the Prophet would stand from his place, would kiss her and sit next to her. Now this is reverence from the two for each other. Now Lady Aisha says that after the Prophet, I have not seen anyone more truthful, righteous than his daughter Bibi Fatima. And that's why she was known as Siddiqa. Now you can see her. She would tend to the wounds of her father. And the Prophet actually needed a motherly, feminine touch. Now, think along with me. The Prophet actually did not experience the love of his biological mother because she died soon after he came to her. And Halima, obviously, she must have loved him a lot, but maybe you can't compare that to a real mother's love. Now, there were two women in the life of the Prophet that have played a pivotal role in the making of the Prophet. One is his wife, Bibi Khadija, the mother of the believers. She immediately says, I believe in you and you're the Prophet. Now, of course, he was shaken by that experience. But she said, no, I believe in you and you are the Prophet. And she gave everything to him. And she supported him till the end. To the extent that when she died, and she was a very wealthy woman, that the Prophet did not have enough from her estate to bury her within a shroud. So he buried her, from what I read, in his cloak. This was the first person in the Prophet's life that actually performed the role of a mother and encouraged him. Now, I don't know how many of us have been fortunate to have this in our lives, but those of us who are will recognize that when the mother tells the child, I believe in you and you can do it, and when the sister says this, and when the daughter says this, it's done. It gives such encouragement to the heart. It empowers the heart. And the Prophet needed this in his humanness. You find the Quran saying, don't grieve. We know it's perturbing you. Don't doubt. Innaka laminal mursalin. Indeed, you are the messenger. Don't. The tonality of the verse says, it doesn't say don't doubt. It says, Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. Innaka laminal mursalin. Indeed, you are a messenger. That implies what? A certain level of maybe, asking questions in there. I believe you are the messenger. You can do it, because I'll tell you why. The Prophet needed to hear this. The Quran never gave that assurance to the Prophet. The Quran never said you will successfully execute your duty. The Quran says either we will let you live or we will kill you. The Prophet wasn't told about his tomorrow. He was led by the day. And that's why it's such a true story. His story is a true one because he lived it. But he needed somebody there, so intimately connected to him, who says to him, I believe in you. You will do it. And that is why the Prophet said, Fatima is Ummu Abiha. She is the mother of her father. See, this wasn't just said loosely. She's played such a crucial role in the life of the Prophet, in the making of the Prophet, in giving him that confidence and empowering him. Now, I just want to narrate one or two incidences. These are from the Shia books. Once the Prophet went to her and Imam Ali had bought her a necklace. So the Prophet looked at her and he said, let not the glitter of this world distract you. She went, sold that necklace. She bought a slave and freed a slave. The Prophet said that if you free a slave, that is the most pleasing to Allah. On another occasion, he had come back from an expedition, and I'm just saying, look at her, how in tune she was. The Prophet came back from an expedition, and he saw a necklace upon her neck, so he just looked away. She took it off, and with Salman, she sent it to her father, who was in the Masjid al-Nabi at that point. And he said, give it to my father and say, this is from your daughter for you to give to the community. So you can see how in tune she was, how aligned she was, so effaced in God she was. At a point when people went with the Prophet to her house, and they saw that she had a camel, an animal skin, upon which the animals used to graze from in the daytime, and at night that was their bedding. And they said, is this the way your daughter lives? And he said, in return, God has made her the queen of women. Very ascetic, very abstemious. But beyond all of that, she was very much aligned deeply with God. Now, there is a book, Sahifat Fatima. I mean, of course, we have huge problems about its authenticity. But the remarkable thing about this du'as, collection of the du'as of Bibi Fatima, is that if you were to read it, you will find that it's authored by the same individual. And it's extremely God-centered, extremely God-centered, which leads me to conclude that there must be some truth in this collection by looking at its content. If you look at the contents of these du'as, they are all praising Allah's wahdaniyah, His bountifulness, His ability, His clemency, His love, His judgment. And in those du'as, she says, "O Lord, keep me alive for as long as life is good for me. Hasten me to you when death becomes better for me." And these are the sentiments of the Prophet. And if you look at those du'as and you assess them, you will say, yes, they are in line with the prophetic teaching. Read those du'as, they are very God-centered. So from here, I have concluded that the rank of the illustrious lady, the lofty rank, is owed not to her service to Islam, which was huge in terms of encouraging the Prophet, standing defiantly with Imam Ali salamullah alayhi, but her lofty stature is due to her inner God centricity, inner effacement in God. That is what makes her her. Now, isn't that phenomenal? The verse says, "We have created you from a male and a female, made you into nations and tribes, so that by mutual interactions you may begin to learn that the most noble," imagine the word noble, most worthy in the sight of God, is the one who is most God cautious. That is at the level of the Muslims. But the real translation is the one who is most God-like. And that is the deeper meaning. And how can it be otherwise? The author authors us in his image. The face is not his image. The inner being is his image. And ultimately, we only love our own self. So our lofty stature, our success, our lack of fear, it all hinges on the inner world. That world needs to become aligned with God. And we need to dig very deep within and find our God and be one with Him, be pleased with Him. So you can see the tribulations that befall Lady Fatima, and of course these are those areas of history that are not comfortable for us, for the Muslim community. She did pain, and she pained a lot. But at the death of the Prophet, she experienced the greatest pain that she could. And she was somebody more endowed in the love of the Prophet and immersed in the Prophet than she was in her children. Like mothers, they are more in love with their children than they are with their parents. She was more in love with her parent than with her children. So she says, "Oh, Father," of course, after he was being called the messenger, she would always call him, "Oh, messenger." She said, "Oh, Father, upon whom shall the clouds rain after you? Who shall be the shelter for the widows and the refuge for the orphans?" He said, "Fatima, say not these words." The Prophet's humility even at the point of death. But recite this verse instead. "Ma kana Muhammad illa Rasul kad khalat min qablihi rusul." Muhammad is nothing but a messenger. Before him have been many messengers. What if he were to die or be killed? Shall you turn away? This is the humility of the Prophet. She grieved. And then he drew her near to him and he said something and she lit up. And this later on asked her, "Oh Fatima, what was it that he said?" He saw my state of grief and he drew me near to himself. And he said, "Oh child, you will be the first one to be reunited with me." And the joy of that overcame me. And you can imagine how illustrious this lady is and how much she is immersed within her father. Now she does feel tribulations, of course, and we know this, the incident of Fadak, the warning and the audacity at her house, and of course her pain about the whole state of the Muslim Ummah going away from that God-centered state that the Prophet had created. And she said, if this Ali were the one that you would have opted for, you would not have been removed from God alignment that the Prophet was creating for you. So this was the grief in her chest with which she is leaving this world. But as she begins to approach her final moments, she says to her maid that I will now retire into my room and I will chant the names of God. When I fall silent, then understand that I am no longer. And that is how this divine lover of Allah and His Messenger leaves this world of ours. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of our blessed Prophet and Bibi Fatima, may Allah forgive the Marhumeens in whose remembrance we have gathered today. May Allah elevate their souls in the ranks of proximity with His Messenger. May Allah forgive all those who have gone before us. May Allah come to the aid of our oppressed families in Palestine and Lebanon and elsewhere, be they Muslims or non-Muslims. May Allah cleanse our sins. May Allah purify our hearts. May Allah cause us to understand Him and to rely upon Him and to love Him and to be happy with Him and His decree. As Bibi Fatima said, "Oh Allah, make me happy with what you have decreed for me." May He make us happy with Him and what He does for us. May our suffering and pains in this world be a source for our increased purity and regaining our light. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring peace to this world of ours, and may Allah, more than anything else, heal the hearts of the oppressors of our world so that they can see the light of beauty of God as opposed to monstrously killing other humans. Rahmallah man qara al-Fatiha. Assalamu alaikum.
Can we please recite the Surah Fatiha for the people of Palestine, Lebanon, and all the people who are suffering all over the world? Also for the Marhumeen whose names are displayed on the screen in the entrance hall, and all our Marhumeen, Al-Fatiha. Our next program for Time for Change will now, inshallah, be on Thursday, 12th of December at 7:30 p.m. The title of the talk will be, What is My Relationship with God? A Journey Through the Quran. The talk will be delivered by Sayyid Suhail Abbas Sibtain. After Ziyarat tonight, to avoid congestion in the showroom, can I kindly request ladies to make their way first to the dining room for Niyaz at the end of the corridor. And before we stand up for Ziyarat, can we please welcome Sheikh Mahmoud to just say a few words? Please, can you welcome him with a salawat?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we are here in safety and of our homes, we wanted to take our thoughts and remember the cries of our brothers and sisters in Lebanon. A land of resistance, resilience, and immeasurable faith, as you have seen on the screens. After months of war, the ceasefire has brought silence, but it has not ended the suffering. The echoes of devastation, hunger, and loss remain aloud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran, and you are familiar with this verse, who is it that will lend Allah a goodly loan so that He may multiply it for him many times over? Today, Lebanon is calling for this goodly loan or godly loan. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said something remarkable. The best of people are those who bring the most benefit to others. And as we have heard in the talk before us, it is a part of our completion. Right now, the most urgent benefit we can bring is life itself. Food for the hungry, shelter for the displaced, and healing for the wounded. These are not luxuries. These are lifelines. Imam Ali alayhi salam has taught us that people are of two kinds, either your brothers in faith or your equals in humanity. Lebanon's pain is our shared obligation, and here it is an opportunity to stand beside them. Again, the Blessed Prophet has said, charity extinguishes sin as water extinguishes fire. Again, this is an opportunity for us to purify our souls in the love of Allah. Picture this, a child in Lebanon who has lost everything finds warmth because of your support. A mother in ruins of her home finds hope because of your support. A community shattered begins to rebuild because of your collective efforts. You will see in the screen in the foyer what your support can do. Your donation is not just money. Your support is just not money. It is a lifeline. A warm blanket for a child shivering in the cold. Food for a hungry family. Medicine for the sick. And comfort for the brokenhearted. As lovers of the Prophet and his family, we know the significance of giving when it hurts the most. This is the legacy of Lady Fatema. And indeed of Karbala, to give everything for the sake of Allah and to uplift the oppressed. Prophet Muhammad assures us, whoever relieves a believer's distress of the distressful aspects of this world, Allah will rescue him from a difficulty of the difficulties of the hereafter. And this, again, is an opportunity for us to complete ourselves. If you wish to support, you can do so at the foyer in the front. Once again, if I can kindly ask you to recite a Fatiha for the Marhumeen, in whose memory tonight's program has also been dedicated, and the names on the screens. Take a minute as you go towards the dining room to look at them, because tomorrow we may be there. Al-Fatiha. توجه زيارة. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين وسيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي وسيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين شهيد بكربلاء، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة الله بن الحسن القائم المهدي المنتظر. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Again, once again, if I can just ask the